level of quality in horror over time, as with everything, ebbs and flows, and the last few years in spooky gaming have been decent, but nothing truly remarkable. As such, it felt like something huge was coming, and that something might well simply be this year. There is a buffet of brilliant horror titles slated for the next 12 months, from both big-name IPs to long-awaited indie releases. These are the titles that prove that 2023 could well be the year of horror. I'm Si for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 upcoming 2023 horror video games you need to play. Number 10. The OUTLAST Trials. Red Barrel's smash hit Outlast and its sequel are some of the most highly reviewed horror games to come out of the PC gaming space, and fans' hunger for more is still strong. As such, at the time of writing, the Outlast Trials has become one of Steam's most wishlisted games. The third entry in the series is a prequel set during the Cold War and focuses on the strange experiments run by the Twisted Murkoff Corporation. Unlike its predecessors, the Outlast Trials is designed less with a single campaign in mind and more so replayability. Thankfully, Outlast diehards can enjoy the game solo, but the real reward comes from being able to overcome the game alongside your friends. The title features limited inventory space and several character customization options that will determine how you use that space. Teaming with others and strategizing together is key, as there is no fight and only flight in this survival experience. Players are also dependent on hiding in the darkness, scurrying through the light, sparing use of their night vision goggles, and solving puzzles as quickly as possible, lest they get jumped by their deformed and altogether unfriendly inmates. The Outlast Trials has had a closed beta test to strong reviews, and now it's full steam ahead to see if the franchise can evolve and strike it big again. Number 9. Alan Wake 2. The original Alan Wake was an Xbox 360 exclusive horror that starred the eponymous novelist losing his mind as he fought the darkness of Bright Falls, Washington. Whilst critically received well, Alan Wake released at a time where horror was struggling to really make a big enough impact, and so the game undersold. Regardless, its quality made it a bright spark in the genre's lack of presence during the early 2010s. Fans and developers Remedy alike were keen for a follow-up, but the viability of such a thing was put into doubt due to the underwhelming sales. In that time, however, Remedy honed their craft and worked away at the concept for an Alan Wake 2. With the teases and cameos coming thick and fast in their other titles, it only made fans desire a true sequel all the more, which was revealed at the Game Awards in 2022. Sam Lake, the mastermind behind the Wake series, has gone on record to say that the sequel will be a straight-up survival horror title, unlike the first game, which he described as merely using horror elements. Considering the first game's incredible sense of self and Remedy's further experiences with out-of-the-box storytelling and presentation in Control, it seems like Alan Wake 2 could wind up being worth the wait. Number 8. The Dead Space Remake. The upcoming Dead Space Remake is one of those titles that looks exactly how many of us picture the original in our heads. Whilst not necessarily a haggard experience at all, seeing the 2008 version next to the 2023 remake certainly shows what a fresh coat of paint can do. Dead Space's remake will be forever intrinsically linked to the Callisto Protocol. For one, the latter was Glenn Schofield's triumphant return to directing horror games after his work on the original Dead Space, and both share a similar sci-fi horror vibe. However, even with all the goodwill in the world that Schofield's new IP could be a worthy spiritual successor, it was released to mixed reviews and controversy. And in the wake of this, EA released around 20 minutes of footage of the Dead Space remake that was the proverbial nail in Callisto's coffin. The game looks immaculate, but more than that, it's the little changes that are inviting. Instead of being a more segmented experience, the USG Ishimura is more interconnected. Zero gravity will be easier to navigate, and the game will reportedly feature no loading screens to create a seamlessly scary experience. As the game on this list closest to release, it'll be exciting to see where Dead Space lands in terms of video game remakes and the line between faithfulness versus originality. Number 7. The Last Case of Benedict Fox. Before video games had high enough visual quality to really be able to scare us, they at least used horror imagery to create great experiences. For example, nobody was afraid of the way Castlevania looked, even if it was chock full of recognisable monsters. Along the same lines then, The Last Case of Benedict Fox might not be the scariest game on this list, but it certainly looks like it's using a horror aesthetic in an awesome, atmospheric and at times disgusting way. A melting pot of Tim Burton, Lovecraft cosmic horror and Metroidvania, The Last Case of Benedict Fox puts the player in the role of a detective investigating a murdered family who winds up facing down a legion of demons. Whilst the Castlevania franchise might come to mind immediately, the 2.5D graphics of Benedict Fox are more in line with modern genre classics like Hollow Knight and the Ori games. Every updated look at the title has shown that developers Plot Twist have really nailed a gorgeous world and a set of interesting gameplay devices. Players will jump into the memories of the deceased to piece together clues and tattoo new abilities onto themselves to take on tougher monsters. Indie Metroidvania games could be considered a dime a dozen dozen these days, but Benedict Fox looks to be a game with a very clear identity and a very memorable look. Number 6. Alone in the Dark. In 2018, after the failure of Alone in the Dark attempting to go multiplayer and online only with Illumination, THQ Nordic scooped up the rights to the IP, which, despite its struggles since the turn of the millennium, is an important part of horror gaming history. Flying under the radar far too much, Alone in the Dark is coming back in a big way with an upcoming reboot. Whilst development team Pieces Interactive have never made a game of this sort, they are at least backed by some great names. Michael Hedberg, who had previously written for Soma and Amnesia: The Dark Descent, is crafting a new story that uses characters from the original trilogy, and monster designs are being handled by Guy Davis, who has experience from the Pacific Rim and Shape of Water films. The team needn't pretend that their work isn't inspired by the success of Resident Evil's remakes, which they've been very clear about. This is cute because the original Resi wouldn't exist without Alone in the Dark, so it's all come full circle. If the trailer is anything to go by, the game looks to be a marriage of combat, puzzles and creepy character work, so it might well be what Alone in the Dark has sorely been in need of for quite some time. Number 5. Routine. There have been many great horror games that have been revealed and then sadly, for whatever reason, never come to fruition. Thankfully, last year publisher Raw Fury saved Routine from the same fate. First revealed in 2012, this sci-fi horror from LUNAR Studios wound up appearing on many most anticipated lists in the following years, thanks to the rich detailed space station location and the heart-pounding chase sequence featuring an unstoppable android. Then the game sort of vanished off into deep space until summer 2022 when it was surprisingly re-revealed. With its first-person perspective and retro-futuristic design, Routine has a not significant nor unfortunate air of the awesome Alien Isolation. The short trailer is already dripping with atmosphere and tension, all set to a strained and uncomfortable soundscape thanks to the work of the legendary Mick Gordon, stepping away from bombastic shooters to craft something wholly different. The 2013 build of the game advertised Oculus VR compatibility. This new version hasn't yet mentioned anything of the sort, but if so, you can prepare for a truly frightening experience. Expectations for Routine after a decade of work are high, but even amongst the giant names returning to the fold this year, this could be the sleeper horror hit. Number 4. Silent Hill Ascension. If you ever needed proof that the horror genre is trending upwards, then there is no sign greater than the cold corpse of Silent Hill finally rising from the dead. Whilst it seems certainly possible that Bloober Team's Silent Hill 2 remake might drop in 2023, we don't know this for sure. The only project that has a prospective release for this year is the biggest unknown quantity of the bunch, Silent Hill Ascension. The game's short trailer and talking heads around it seem to imply that the game will feature ARG elements, with groups of friends working together to make choices and put together a story where, quote, every choice is canon and there is no reset button. Everyone involved is keeping the exact details of this one close to their chest, but developers behind it at least inspire some confidence. Behaviour Studio, known for Dead by Daylight, at least has plenty of experience with multiplayer titles, and Bad Robot Productions, helmed by J.J. Abrams, guarantees high production values. Ascension will be the cautious first step for the series back into the water, and we should remain open-minded about what Silent Hill can be in 2023 and beyond. Number 3. Slitterhead. The original run of Silent Hill games were put together by a ragtag internal Konami team known as Team Silent. Whatever happened to those guys? Well, Keiichiro Toyama, after directing the original Silent Hill, has had a few titles over the years both in and out of the horror genre, but in 2020 helped to form Bokeh Studio. Here he reunited with Team Silent alumni Akira Yamaoka, composer and horror soundscape maestro. In 2021, the pair and their new team revealed Slitterhead. Inspired by Hong Kong cinema, our first look at the game was a truly exciting one, marrying urban Asian life and a world of twisted darkness, complete with some truly stomach-turning body horror transformations and a lot of blood. We've yet to see any gameplay for Slitterhead, but best guesses are that it isn't too far away now. Before the title was even announced, Bokeh Studio said that their first production would launch in 2023, and Slitterhead was revealed over a year ago, so providing production kept up at a good pace, it may well launch just before Silent Hill begins its slew of comeback entries. There's no better year for these horror gaming icons to return to make another mark on the genre. Number 2. Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. At this point, the Wii U is probably rightfully remembered as a console that gave us a few dozen great games that were thankfully freed from the system's clutches later. One of the last of these was Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater, which came to all major systems in 2021 after its original 2015 release to the Wii U's devoted but small install base. This port, it seems, may have been a major factor in opening the door up to a another game in the franchise being given a second lease on life. Not just taken from the Wii and being brought to modern consoles, Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse's 2023 remaster represents the missing piece of the puzzle for international fans, as it will be the first time the game leaves Japan. Mask of the Lunar Eclipse is actually a bestseller in its home country and considered a great entry in the franchise. The divisive motion controls of the original release will assumedly be left at the wayside in favour of something more traditional, and the game has received an overall visual overhaul. As the second remaster for the series, things are looking up for the future of Fatal Frame. Whatever happens, fans are champing at the bit to finally get an international release of this beloved horror classic. And number 1, Resident Evil 4 Remake. Even outside of horror, 2023 is already being thought of as the year of remakes. The next chapter of Final Fantasy VII, System Shock, Lollipop Chainsaw, and the list goes on. Perhaps the biggest and boldest of these is Capcom's choice to return to the world of Resident Evil 4. In 2005, this game not only rejuvenated the franchise, but RE4's approach to over-the-shoulder gameplay was a sea change for the industry, setting a blueprint for the next decade. Arguably, Resi 4 doesn't need a remake. Not only is it the perfect encapsulation of its zeitgeist, it's also important and beloved enough that it still sells today. Therein lies the temptation, perhaps, to breed a second cash cow from the DNA of Resi 4. That cynicism aside, there really may be nothing to worry about. Capcom has been on undeniable form recently, and previous Resident Evil reimaginings have been exceptionally solid games. In a recent interview, producer Yoshiaki Hirobayashi confirmed that not only would Resident Evil 4 Remake suffer no cut content, but that there would be more than ever before. So far, what we've seen of the game is the perfect taster of high-energy panic horror action and some seriously dark, unsettling visuals in the best possible way. So the question really is, can Resident Evil 4 be an all-time great twice? And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Which of these upcoming horror titles are you the most excited about? And of course, let us know of any others that we couldn't squeeze into this top 10. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Head over to WhatCulture.com for more content on the daily. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.